US President Donald Trump and dictator Vladimir Putin have tentatively agreed to an air truce in Ukraine during talks in Alaska before a new round of discussions on ending the war, the Economist journalist Oliver Carroll wrote on the X social network. British journalist Carroll cites insider information. According to him, the interested parties have already reached a preliminary agreement on a ceasefire in the air in Ukraine, which should come into force before the trilateral meeting. We are talking about the negotiations between US President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky with Russian dictator Putin. Editor's note. Carroll did not give any details. He only stated that on this issue, next week will be interesting. It should be noted that the ceasefire in the air means the cessation of strikes by cruise and ballistic missiles, drones on objects in the rear. Russian troops often carry out airstrikes simply on Ukrainian cities indiscriminately, trying to sow panic and fear among Ukrainians. In addition, the occupiers often attack civilian infrastructure in Ukraine with drones and missiles. And the Ukrainian Armed Forces carry out strikes only on military and strategic objects on the territory of the Russian Federation. Volodymyr Zelensky has previously called on Putin several times to agree to a ceasefire in the air. The Russian dictator allegedly verbally supported such a proposal. But then Russian troops again launched airstrikes on Ukrainian cities. Earlier, it became known why dictator Vladimir Putin actually needs a truce in the air. Military expert and former SBU employee Ivan Stupak told Radio NV that it would be advantageous for the Kremlin to offer the US a temporary cessation of air attacks in the war with Ukraine. The proposal is for a 10-day pause in response to Trump's peace demand, during which Ukraine and Russia would ostensibly stop using drones and missiles. Such a proposal could be aimed at Donald Trump, presenting it as a diplomatic success before the election. This could be perceived by Trump as a crazy victory. That Putin is listening, he's also in the mood for peace. Stupak explained. This could prompt the American leader to yet another delay in sanctions and duties against Russia and its partners. At the same time, military actions on the ground will not cease.
Russian President Vladimir Putin toured a fish factory in Russia's Far East on Friday ahead of a meeting with US President Donald Trump in Alaska. According to Associated Press, Trump is flying to Alaska for a high-stakes summit with Putin at a US military base. Friday's meeting could influence the war in Ukraine and European security. The Republican US president aims to showcase his skills as a dealmaker. Trump says his talks with Putin will include Russian demands that Ukraine cede territory as part of a peace deal. For Putin, the meeting is a chance to negotiate terms that favor Russia. The summit excludes Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, which could undermine Ukraine's interests. Trump has expressed hopes for a broader peace deal, but success is uncertain. The meeting's outcome could have significant implications for international relations and US diplomacy.
Наш лаборатория, я хочу представить вас замдиректора по технологии Мешковский Александр. Я вас понял правильно, понимаю, лаборатория, достаточно узкий, то, что мы сейчас делаем, это вот RPG, мы делаем детское. А это мы хотели вам наглядно показать, вот 7 сантиметров. Вот, если... Предложение 10 будет 300 лет назад, и до сих пор он очень востребован и популярно. Это происходит из-за того, что время уже есть два компонента, очень важные для организма человека, для кислоты.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces have struck a seaport in the Astrakhan region of the Russian Federation, hitting a ship carrying components for the Shahids from Iran, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported. As part of reducing the enemy's ability to carry out airstrikes, on August 14, units of the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in cooperation with other components of the Defense Forces, carried out a fire strike on the Alya seaport, Astrakhan region of the Russian Federation, the report says. The operation by the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, carried out in coordination with other branches of the Defense Forces, was aimed at reducing the enemy's ability to carry out airstrikes against Ukraine. Russia uses the Alya port as an important logistics hub for the supply of military goods from Iran, the Ukrainian military said in a statement. The Russian seaport of Alya is located in the village of Alya, the Lymansky district of the Astrakhan region. The facility is situated in the delta of the Volga River, which flows into the Caspian Sea. Last September, the U.S. Treasury and State Department imposed sanctions on ships and companies it said were involved in supplying Moscow with Iranian weapons. Terminals and ports comprised 7% of Ukraine's successful strikes on Russian territory since the beginning of 2025, the Ukrainian military said. Most of the Ukrainian deep strikes took place over a range between 200 and 1,000 kilometers, it added. Ukraine estimated that its strikes dealt $74.1 billion in damages this year, but did not provide details on its calculations. On November 6 last year, a Ukrainian strike drone hit a missile boat of the Caspian flotilla of the Russian Navy at the naval base in Kaspiask. The drone traveled approximately 1,500 kilometers from the Ukrainian border to reach its target. It is home to the Russian Navy's Caspian flotilla and coastal troops, including marine forces, according to the independent Russian Astra media outlet. The flotilla has conducted missile strikes on Ukraine, and the 177th Marine Regiment has participated in combat operations in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions, the publication noted.